I brought my niece a birthday gift, but my brother kicked me out, saying I wasn't welcome. The drive over to my niece Lily's birthday party was supposed to be a happy one. I had spent weeks planning the perfect gift, a handcrafted dollhouse that mirrored a miniature Victorian mansion, complete with tiny furniture and working lights. Lily had mentioned wanting one like it months ago when we were walking past a toy store, her eyes lighting up with innocent excitement. Along with the dollhouse, I packed a few other gifts, some art supplies, a personalized storybook, and a plush unicorn she'd been obsessed with. I was genuinely looking forward to seeing that smile on her face. But as I pulled up to my brother Trevor's house, a familiar sense of unease settled in my chest. This wasn't the first time I'd driven here with hope, only to leave with a bitter aftertaste. My family had a way of turning simple family moments into something transactional, especially when it came to me. I even stopped by Starbucks for a caramel macchiato on the way, a small comfort before stepping into the usual circus. Trevor and I had never been close. He was the older brother who barely held a job for more than a few months, but somehow always lived beyond his means. Meanwhile, I had built a small but successful business. I wasn't a millionaire by any stretch, but I made good money. Enough to cover my own expenses and help out with Lily's school tuition when Trevor and his wife claimed they were struggling. Growing up, Trevor always bragged about his big plans, while I was the kid mowing lawns to save up for a Game Boy. I stepped out of the car and carefully lifted the dollhouse from the trunk, balancing it while holding a gift bag in the other hand. The afternoon sun cast a glow over the house, an impressive two-story home that Trevor somehow managed to afford despite his sporadic employment. The decorations for the party were lavish, balloons, streamers, and a giant inflatable unicorn on the front lawn. The whole setup looked like Pinterest exploded in the yard. As I walked up the path, the front door opened. My mom, Linda, stood there with arms crossed and an expression that could chill boiling water. Behind her, Trevor appeared, holding a red plastic cup and smirking as he surveyed the gifts I carried. "Well, well," Trevor said, his tone dripping with mockery. "Look who decided to show up with his tiny treasures." "What? Couldn't swing a pony rental?" I forced a smile, trying to focus on the reason I came. "They're for Lily," I said simply. Mom stepped aside, but her cold gaze didn't soften. "We weren't sure you'd come," she said flatly. "Trevor thought you'd at least cover the cost of the party, after all you've done for Lily." My jaw tightened. I had paid thousands for Lily's school just a month ago. I didn't mind helping Lily. She was innocent in all this, but this was different. This felt like an expectation I hadn't agreed to. Trevor laughed and took a swig from his cup, probably cheap beer from a clearance rack. "Guess Mr. Successful draws the line at a few balloons and cupcakes," he said. I scanned the crowd of kids running around the backyard, searching for Lily. I caught a glimpse of her near the inflatable unicorn, laughing as she chased bubbles. I wanted to go to her, hand her the gifts, and see her eyes light up. But my mom's voice cut through my thoughts. "If you're not contributing, you probably shouldn't stay long," she said. "We didn't plan for extra guests who aren't pitching in." The words hit harder than I expected. I wasn't a guest. I was family. Or at least I thought I was. Trevor leaned against the door frame and smirked. "Maybe next year you can step up like a real brother. Or, just Venmo me." My pulse pounded in my ears. My arms ached from holding the dollhouse, but the weight in my chest was heavier. Without saying another word, I turned around, walked back to the car, and placed the gifts in the trunk. As I slid into the driver's seat and started the engine, I caught a glimpse of Lily through the rearview mirror. She had noticed me now and was waving with both hands, her smile wide and innocent. I lifted my hand to wave back, my vision blurring. But I couldn't stay. Not like this. As I drove away from the house, I couldn't shake the question echoing in my mind. When did my family become a conspiracy of takers, and how much longer could I be their target? Maybe next year. I should just send an invoice instead of a dollhouse. I drove home with the weight of disappointment sitting heavy on my chest. The dollhouse still sat in the trunk, untouched, just like the hope I'd carried with me to that party. I parked, went inside, and collapsed onto the couch without bothering to turn on the lights. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I switched it off without checking. I needed silence. From them, from myself, from the gnawing truth I kept trying to ignore. As I stared at the ceiling, the past started creeping in. Trevor had always been the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I remembered being 8, standing in the kitchen with a broken toy truck in my hands while Trevor stood beside me, wide-eyed and innocent. He had smashed it against the wall during a tantrum, but when Mom walked in, Trevor simply pointed at me. I protested, of course, but Mom sighed, shook her head and said, "Alex, why can't you just share nicely?" That was Trevor's superpower. Getting away with everything while making me the villain. I guess some family dynamics never change. Like the time he convinced Dad I was the one who scratched the car, even though his fingerprints were all over the hood. Trevor was always a Teflon kid. Nothing stuck to him. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows and the distinct sound of life continuing without a care for family drama. I made myself a strong cup of coffee, dark roast with a splash of oat milk, just like I liked it, and sat on the back porch, trying to make sense of it all. The neighbor's dog barked at the mailman. Kids rode by on scooters yelling about who was faster, and for a moment, I imagined what it would be like to live in a family where birthdays were just birthdays, not battlegrounds. By the second day, I figured I'd better face the music, so I turned my phone back on. It lit up like a Christmas tree with notifications. 25 missed calls, dozens of messages. My stomach tightened. Mom, don't be so petty, Alex. It's family. Dad, you need to be the bigger person. Trevor, you ruined Lily's birthday. Classic. Trevor makes a mess. I get blamed for not cleaning it up. I scrolled further, feeling the familiar frustration build. But then I saw a message from an unexpected number. Sarah. My brother's wife never texted me unless it was about Lily's school or some logistical thing. Sarah, he's furious. He was counting on your money. Be careful. My breath caught in my throat. Sarah wasn't the type to exaggerate. I reread the message, my heart racing. Trevor was angry, and if Sarah was warning me, it meant something more than his usual sulking was going on. What exactly had he been planning? And what was he willing to do now that his plan had fallen apart? The morning air was crisp as I drove through familiar streets, my mind still tangled with the memory of Sarah's message. I'd gone over it a dozen times, trying to figure out what Trevor had been planning. He's furious. He was counting on your money. Be careful. The words lingered like a splinter under my skin. I stopped by a drive-thru to grab a large coffee black and a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit. Somehow, holding that familiar wax cup with its comforting heat grounded me. It reminded me of countless mornings rushing to work, my biggest worry being traffic and whether I'd spill coffee on my shirt. I was headed to a supplier across town when I took a detour through my old neighborhood. The sight of my parents' house caught me off guard. The lawn was still immaculately trimmed, the shutters freshly painted. It looked the same as it had when I was a kid, except for the figure pacing the front porch. Trevor. He stalked back and forth like a caged animal, gesturing wildly while my mom stood stiffly by the door. Even from my car, I could hear his raised voice. His face was flushed, his hands slicing the air with frustration. My foot hovered over the brake pedal as curiosity overpowered common sense. I parked a block away and walked closer, staying out of sight behind the neighbor's towering oak tree. Trevor's voice carried across the lawn. "You said they'd help," he shouted. "You promised. Now I'm screwed." My mom's voice was quieter, but I caught bits and pieces. "Not our fault. Thought Alex would. Can't just throw money." Trevor ran his hands through his hair and kicked a flower pot off the porch. It shattered against the walkway, scattering dirt and ceramic shards. I almost laughed. Trevor had always been dramatic. In third grade, he'd cried for a week when he lost his lucky baseball cap, convinced it was a family heirloom. I ducked behind a tree as my mom turned toward the street, scanning the area. My heart raced. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I fished it out and saw Sarah's name on the screen. I stepped farther behind the tree and answered. "Alex, I shouldn't be calling, but you need to know," she said, her voice low. "Trevor spent thousands on that party. He booked a magician, rented the bounce house, ordered custom cakes, all because he thought you'd cover it. Like always." "Why would he assume that?" I asked, glancing back toward the porch. Trevor was now sitting on the steps, head in his hands. "Because your mom told him you would," Sarah said. "She told him not to worry, that you'd handle it like you did with Lily's tuition." He was so confident he even bragged about it to his friends. My stomach dropped. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. My mom had promised my money without even asking me. Again, Sarah sighed into the phone. "He's completely broke now. Maxed out his credit cards for that party. He's going to have to sell his Mustang." I almost laughed. The Mustang. The car he'd flaunted like a trophy every time we met. Real men drive luxury. He'd sneered once. I in my well-used Honda Civic. He treated that car better than he treated most people. Trevor washed it every Saturday morning, blasting classic rock and bragging to the neighbors about its horsepower. I peeked around the tree. Trevor was still slumped on the porch, and Mom had disappeared inside. His car, sleek black and polished to a mirror shine, was parked in the driveway. The king of the castle brought low by a child's birthday party. I slipped back to my car, my mind spinning. My family had always been a mess, but this was a new low. And for once, Trevor was facing the consequences. The Mustang, the lavish party, the broken flower pot, all pieces of a crumbling facade. I gripped the steering wheel and exhaled slowly. If Trevor was desperate enough to sell his prized car, what else was he capable of doing to get what he wanted? The glow of my phone screen cut through the darkness of my bedroom, vibrating insistently on my nightstand. I groggily reached for it, squinting at the caller ID, Sarah. A late-night call from her was never a good sign. I answered, and the shakiness in her voice put me on high alert. She spoke in hushed, urgent tones. "Lily's scared of him, Alex. Ever since the party, he's been getting worse. Short-tempered, yelling all the time. Tonight, he slammed a chair against the wall when she spilled juice on the floor. I'm packing up. I'm taking her to my sister's." My stomach clenched. I sat up, throwing my legs over the edge of the bed, suddenly wide awake. Trevor had always been a selfish, entitled jerk, but this was different. This was worse. I rubbed my face, trying to shake off the weight of my own childhood memories. Trevor had been a bully back then, too. But back when we were kids, his tantrums ended in broken toys, not traumatized 8-year-olds. And our parents, they had always brushed it off. "Boys will be boys," they'd say. "Just let it go, Alex. Let it go." That was the theme of my childhood. Every cruel remark, every stolen allowance, every blame that fell on me instead of Trevor, just let it go. Keep the peace. Don't make waves. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with a bruise on my arm from one of Trevor's pranks while Mom handed me a cookie and told me to be the bigger person. I took a deep breath and forced my voice to stay steady. "You need to get out of there now. Don't wait until morning. He's going to wake up, realize you're leaving, and it won't be pretty." Sarah exhaled shakily on the other end. "I know. I've got bags packed. I just need to wait until he falls asleep." I could hear Lily in the background, her small voice asking if they were leaving soon. My jaw tightened. The sound of her tiny voice cut through me like a cold wind. "I can come get you," I offered. "No. My sister's only a couple of hours away. I'll get there. I don't know what happens after that." I had no answer for her. Sarah had put up with Trevor's nonsense for years, probably hoping he'd change, probably believing that if she kept the peace long enough, things would just settle. But I knew better. Some people don't change. They just get worse when they start losing control. I ran a hand through my hair and stood up, pacing across the hardwood floor. My socked feet made soft swishing sounds with each step, a grounding noise in the middle of this nightmare. The glowing digits on my bedside clock read 2:37 a.m. When you get to your sister's, call me. No matter what time. You and Lily are my priority. Thank you, Alex. Her voice cracked. I'm scared. I know, I said, gripping my phone tighter. But you're doing the right thing. We hung up, but sleep wasn't an option anymore. I stared at my reflection in the dark window, my thoughts a tangled mess. I had spent my whole life cleaning up Trevor's messes, bailing him out, letting things go. But this wasn't just about money or manipulation anymore. This was about Lily. And no way in hell was I letting Trevor ruin her the way he had tried to ruin me. As the night stretched on, one thing became clear. My brother had finally crossed a line there was no coming back from. And this time, I wasn't just going to stand by and watch. The next morning, my phone rang before my alarm even had a chance. I groaned, already knowing who it was before I picked it up. Sure enough, Mom flashed across the screen. I took a deep breath and answered, bracing myself for whatever guilt trip was coming my way. Her voice was already thick with emotion. Alex, it's bad. Trevor's in trouble. Sarah left him, took Lily, and now she's filing for divorce. He's drowning in debt, and he has no one. He's your brother, Alex. You need to help him. I stared at the ceiling, letting her words sink in. Same script, different crisis. Trevor was in trouble, and somehow I was supposed to be the solution. I sat up, rubbed my face, and glanced toward the half-empty LaCroix can and unopened bills on my nightstand. Classic Monday morning. Mom, I said, keeping my voice even. I already helped. I paid for Lily's school. I've given him money more times than I can count. And what did he do? Blew it on a birthday party he couldn't afford. Now I'm supposed to clean up the mess again. Alex, don't be cruel, she sniffled. He's at his lowest. If you hadn't refused to help before, none of this would have happened. I almost laughed. It was impressive, really, the way she twisted the blame so effortlessly. Trevor was a grown man who made his own bad decisions, but in her world, it was somehow my fault. The guy could set his couch on fire, and she'd blame me for not buying him flame-retardant cushions. So, let me get this straight, I said, sitting up. If I had just kept giving him money, Sarah would have stayed? He wouldn't have driven his own family away? That's what you're saying. You're twisting my words, she cried. He's your brother. Family takes care of family. I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling the familiar frustration build. My thumb brushed the ridge of the scar I'd gotten from Trevor pushing me off my bike when I was 7. No, Mom. Family isn't about covering for someone while they dig their own hole. Family isn't about guilt-tripping the one responsible person into fixing everything. I love Lily, and I helped her because she's innocent in all this. But Trevor? He's had chance after chance, and he still expects everyone else to carry him. I'm done. There was silence on the other end. Then a quiet sob. You're turning your back on us. After everything. A familiar pang of guilt tried to creep in, but this time, I pushed it away. No, Mom. I'm just not playing this game anymore. I expected more tears, more pleading, but instead, she just hung up. No goodbye. No final attempt to sway me. Just an abrupt silence that felt more like a verdict than an end to the conversation. I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. The weight I'd carried for years, of being the responsible one, the fixer, the problem solver, felt a little lighter. For the first time in my life, I had said no, and it felt good. For once, I wasn't drowning in someone else's mess. The day after that tense call with my mom, I tried to get back to normal. I answered emails, sipped my morning coffee, and even squeezed in a run through the neighborhood. But the sense of unease lingered like the smell of burnt toast. Something told me Trevor wouldn't just accept this sudden shift of responsibility. That hunch was confirmed when my phone buzzed around lunchtime. I was mid-bite into a turkey sandwich when Sarah's message popped up with a screenshot attached. "Thought you should see this," she wrote. The image loaded, and there was a Facebook post from Trevor. "My brother ruined my family. My daughter cries every day because of him. Money changes people. Some folks forget where they come from." The caption was paired with an old photo of us as kids, me, smiling with a missing front tooth, and Trevor with his arm slung casually over my shoulder like we were best buddies. The comment section was already filling with sympathy for Trevor. "Stay strong, bro," one read. "Family first," said another. I rubbed my temples. Classic Trevor. Spin the story. Play the victim. Let the world see his crocodile tears while quietly glossing over the truth. My thumb hovered over the reply button. My mind raced with clever retorts. Yeah, money changes people. Like the ones who think their kids' tuition fund is a party budget. Or maybe, crying every day? I'd cry too if my dad blew rent money on bounce houses. But no, I knew how this worked. Respond publicly, and I'd just feed the drama. Instead, I opened my messages and texted Trevor directly. Strong men don't beg their little brothers. The status was deleted within an hour. That night, I settled into the couch with a beer and a rerun of some forgettable sitcom. Just as the canned laughter peaked, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. My stomach dropped. For a split second, I told myself it was probably just a delivery. Wishful thinking. I approached the door and peered through the peephole. Trevor. He stood swaying on the porch, face flushed and eyes wild. I could practically feel the heat of his anger through the door. "Open up, Alex," he shouted, pounding on the door. "We need to talk." I debated calling the police but dismissed the thought. This was Trevor. Loud, aggressive, but not dangerous. Or at least, that's what I hoped. I unlocked the door but left the chain on, opening it just a crack. "Go home, Trevor." "I can't," he slurred. "I don't have one." "You happy?" "Sarah took Lily. I've got nothing left. But you sit here in your fancy house like a king. I need money, Alex. I know you've got it." My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice steady. "I give money to people who deserve it," I said. His face twisted, mouth opening to hurl something back. But before he could speak, I shut the door and slid the deadbolt into place. The pounding resumed, fist after fist against the wood, each blow reverberating through the hall. I stepped back, forcing myself to breathe. After 10 minutes, the noise stopped. I looked through the peephole again. Trevor was gone, but the uneasy feeling stayed, coiled tight in my chest. I checked the lock again, then double-checked the windows. Some battles don't end at the door. The morning after Trevor's late-night visit, I woke up feeling like I'd run a mental marathon. My knuckles were sore from clenching my fists all night, and my mind was still tangled in knots. I made a strong cup of coffee, extra cream, extra sugar, comfort fuel. I grabbed a bagel from the counter, the kind with way too many poppy seeds that I'd regret later, and sat at the kitchen table scrolling through my phone. My thumb hovered over Sarah's contact. I hesitated. I didn't want to make her life more complicated, but Lily deserved better. And if there was one thing I could still do, it was make sure she had a shot at a future untouched by Trevor's chaos. I tapped the call button. She answered on the second ring. "Alex." "Hey, Sarah," I said, stirring my coffee. "I've been thinking about Lily. I want to set up a fund for her. Something solid. Something Trevor can't touch." Silence stretched on the line, then a soft, disbelieving exhale. "Are you serious?" "Yeah. I know it's not everything, but it's a start. She deserves more than this circus." Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. We talked through the details. I explained that I'd set up a trust fund with strict limitations. Lily could access it for her education or later for a home or a business, but only after she turned 18. And Trevor? He wouldn't have any legal access. No loopholes, no exceptions. After we hung up, I called my attorney. Set up an irrevocable trust, I said. Beneficiary, Lily Thompson. Stipulation, no parental access. By noon, the paperwork was in motion. I transferred the first chunk of money, enough to cover college tuition at any decent university, into the account. That night, I FaceTimed with Sarah and Lily. Lily's eyes lit up when she saw me. Uncle Alex, she chirped, holding up a stuffed unicorn I'd given her for her birthday. Mom says we're staying with Aunt Jess now. She has a dog named Waffles. I laughed, genuinely this time. Waffles, huh? Sounds like a good roommate. Just don't let him near your snacks. Sarah's smile was faint but real. Thank you again, she mouthed. After we hung up, I sat back on the couch and let out a long breath. The TV droned in the background, some cooking competition where a stressed-out chef yelled about undercooked risotto. For once, I felt like I was doing something good that couldn't be twisted, manipulated, or drained dry by Trevor. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. Nice move. Bro, think you can buy my kids love. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked the number and smiled. Trevor could rant all he wanted. Lily's future was out of his reach now. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. It never was with him. The invitation came via text late Saturday morning, while I was halfway through my second cup of coffee. The screen lit up with a message from Mom. Family dinner tomorrow, 6 p.m. Don't be late. No question mark. No, please. Just an order, like I was 12 again and being summoned to the kitchen for a family talk. I stared at the message, my gut instinct immediately sounding the alarm. I didn't need a crystal ball to know what this was about. Trevor. Again. Mom probably envisioned us sitting around the dining room table. The same one where countless guilt trips had been served alongside mashed potatoes, while she tried to convince me once more to help your brother. I put the phone down and took a long sip of coffee, scrolling through my emails just to have an excuse to ignore the situation. The warmth did little to ease the tightness in my chest. The past few weeks have been a roller coaster. Setting up Lily's fund, fending off Trevor's late-night tantrum, and ignoring his social media outbursts. I thought I was finally done with the drama, but family ties have a way of tightening when you try to cut loose. I picked up the phone and typed the response. Thanks for the invite, Mom, but I'm not coming. I'm not the family ATM. Love isn't measured in checks. The reply came faster than I expected. The phone buzzed in my hand. You've changed, Alex. No follow-up. No goodbye. Just those 3 words. And maybe she was right. I had changed. Finally. That afternoon, I drove to a hardware store. The thought of Trevor showing up unannounced again didn't sit right with me. I bought a new security camera and installed it above the front door. As I drilled into the brick, I remembered all the times Trevor mocked me for being too cautious. The same guy who once hid his car keys in a cereal box to avoid paying a parking ticket. Typical Trevor logic. I stopped by a small diner afterward, grabbing a burger and a milkshake. Sitting in a corner booth, I watched a couple arguing over their bill, while an old man at the counter gave unsolicited advice to the waitress. Normal life, normal people. Not the never-ending family drama that had been my reality for so long. The next day, instead of enduring another guilt-laden dinner, I met Sarah and Lily at the park. The air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue. Lily ran ahead with a bag of peanuts, tossing them to the squirrels that darted across the paths. Look, Uncle Alex, she called, pointing to a chubby squirrel nibbling at the base of a bench. That one's the boss. He chased the other ones away. I laughed and joined her. Yeah, he's definitely the boss. Probably named Trevor. Sarah smirked as she sat on the bench beside me. You know he'll never stop trying, right? Yeah, I said, watching Lily giggle as the squirrels competed for her peanuts. But I'm done playing. My phone buzzed on the bench between us. Mom's name again. I let it go to voicemail. You don't want to check that? Sarah asked. Nah, I said. If it's important, she'll leave a message. We sat there in comfortable silence for a while, the sounds of children playing and squirrels chittering filling the crisp autumn air. A man jogged by with a golden retriever in tow, earbuds in, oblivious to the rest of the world. Across the path, a mom struggled to balance a tray of coffees while her toddler attempted a jailbreak from the stroller. Lily plopped onto the bench beside me, her cheeks rosy from running. Uncle Alex, she asked, her voice soft. Yeah, kiddo. Will you come to my next birthday? I pulled her into a hug. Of course, princess. And this time, we're going to have a party that's all about you. No bounce houses, no drama. Just fun. She grinned. And maybe Waffles can come too? Definitely Waffles, I said, ruffling her hair. He can be the guest of honor. The phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. Mom, again. I hit ignore without a second thought. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe, because this time I wasn't just walking away. I was finally free.